Welcome to the Community Collective Podcast, a flip-flop agent production in collaboration with the Davison Area Chamber of Commerce. I am your host, Johnny B. Good. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Community Collective Podcast. I am one of your hosts of the Community Collective. My name is Johnny B. Good. I am the flip-flop agent, and I am joined today not only with our special guest, but with my co-host and partner in crime, Mr. Travis Howell, the Executive Director for the Davison Area Chamber of Commerce. Travis, how are you doing today, my friend?
I am doing really good, Johnny. It's a nice day to be inside and get caught up on a little bit of work, but I can't complain. How are you today?
I'm telling you, man, I'm not real excited about this fake summer that we had because today it feels like we're back into winter and we are in the tail end of April. And I am displeased that I'm seeing snowflakes midday over here in the lovely state of Michigan. But for the time being, here we are. So we're just going to deal with it. And I'm going to let you take it away with our special guest today. Why don't you tell us who we're talking with and jump right into it?
Yeah, so I'm really excited today to have Richfield Township Police Chief Tony Craig today. Tony, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about you guys?
It's a good day, and we get to. I'm always excited about these because we get to learn more about our guest and let the community hear about what's going on in our area. Chief, what has your morning been like so far? Been having a good ease into a Monday?
No, it's a typical Monday, just getting all the stuff caught up from the weekend, but going well.
Good. One of the things I really am always interested to talk to our guest about, and especially when we have someone who has a career as a in law enforcement and first responder, is Chief, what is your background?
I was born and raised in Genesee County, went to Kersley High School, graduated in 1992. There, I went to Mott Community College in criminal justice. While I was at college, I became a reserve police officer at 19 years old at the Genesee Township Police Department. Reserve was basically full uniform, had a firearm, everything, but I had to be with another police officer at all times. So after I got my degree, I was going to go to U of M to get my bachelor's degree, and some classes kind of went a little different for me. So I ended up going into the police academy at Delta College. And right after the police academy, we started here at Richfield Township 10 days later. That was May of 1995, and been here for 28 years.
Wow, what a wide variety of areas to go into. And I've been learning that more and more when I get a chance to talk to anyone in law enforcement, is there's a lot of great educational opportunities and options for you guys to choose from. Now, first, I'll have to say my wife is a Kersley grad, so I've had to learn to appreciate the Kersley Hornets down the street from the Davison Cardinals. But it's great to hear someone like you, born and raised in this area, and you're still committed and passionate about serving the area.
So
So now tell me a little bit about this. You said at 19, you started as a reserve police officer. Now, is this something that was more common a few years ago where you had something like that, or does it still exist? Or what was by being a reserve officer, what opportunities did that introduce you to?
back in those days, it was really tough getting into law enforcement. You had to do extra things to be able to get a job right away. And that was a volunteer position. So it just gave me on-the-job training. It got me that much further ahead of other potential candidates. And it was a lot of hours. I worked a lot of weekends, going to school still full-time, working on the side and being that reserve police officer. So it gave me that extra step.
I was going to say that, first of all, you were volunteering for it at such a young age. I think that, to me, that says that's a commitment to law enforcement. You're a teenager, you're volunteering to go out and keep people safe. It's fascinating. Did you know about being a reserve officer, or did it take some time did you interact with someone that said, hey, you should check this out? Or how did you learn about that back then?
I was a senior in school, and one of their officers used the weight room. And when I was younger and in a little better shape than I am now, I started talking to that officer, and he turned me on to the reserve program. And I went and I spoke to the chief on multiple occasions. At that time, he thought, I was just probably some young kid that wasn't real serious about going into law enforcement, but I knew right from a young age, that was what I wanted to do. So after multiple trips into the chief's office, he finally gave me the opportunity.
So that kind of leads into another question is you had these experiences as a 19-year-old, and did that just getting those experiences encourage you to say law enforcement is my calling, law enforcement is where I can best serve my community? Because you mentioned you went to Mott and Delta Police Academy. So obviously you were committed to it, but was that being a reserve officer what really gave you the experiences to law enforcement is where I'm being called to serve?
Yeah, it definitely gave me the calling. That's where I wanted to be. So when I originally started out, I wanted to be a paramedic. So a little bit of the law enforcement, a little bit of the medical side. But after working as a reserve, I shifted just to straight up law enforcement.
Yeah. So now I'm sure as a police officer, you're obviously doing some first responder kind of emergency situations. You guys are fully capable of doing medical assistance on someone to a certain level. Now, what type of trainings did you have to do, or what do you go through in those type of situations? Not only are you out there doing the law enforcement side, but you're there also as that first responder that could really help someone.
The difference in this was being a reserve, or I'm sorry, being a police officer as opposed to a paramedic is solely medical calls. They usually don't respond to the police side calls or the criminal aspect of it. Being a police officer, we do overlap and do some medical things. I know in the police academy, I was a medical first responder when I left the academy. I don't have that licensure anymore; it's expired. But we do basic first aid. We're the first ones on a crash, or we treat injuries until the paramedics or the ambulance crew arrives on scene. We're trained in CPR and the AED, choking, panic maneuvers, things like that, basic stuff.
Okay, so now after you mentioned after you finished going to the Delta Police Academy that you went straight and had a job offer from Richfield Township. How
Right.
did you learn about that opening? What roles have you had at the Richfield Township Police Department over the years?
I found out back in, let's see, while I was in college, I was a varsity swimming and diving coach, the assistant swimming and diving coach for Powers Catholic. And one of the openings that I had's dad was a police officer at Davison City. So I started riding, and as well as being a reserve, I was riding out here at Davison City Police Spot at Davison City Police Department as a reserve, just learning the job and the aspect of that. And I got to know the chief of Richfield Township from riding with that officer, Bucci, and met Boyd Stellinger, who was the chief at Richfield. And after the academy, 10 days later, I was hired actually at Davison City and Richfield on the same day as a part timer. And then I ended up being hired full time at Richfield Township a couple months later.
It is. It sounds like just even at a young age, you're constantly getting experience of not only being a volunteer reserve police officer, but coming in to a community that you know about and doing your ride-alongs, working, and then it sounds like you have really enjoyed when I've had a chance to talk to you that you've really enjoyed being in Richfield Township and getting to know the residents there. Now, over those years, you did just happen to get hired as police chief right away, so you had different roles and responsibilities. So, what have those been over the years? What are some of the different roles you had or responsibilities over your career so far with Richfield Township that you've been able to do?
Okay. Obviously started out as a patrolman or patrol officer. I did that job for about 5 years. Some of the duties I had there, I was an accident reconstructionist at that time. So I was on the DART team, which is the Davison Area Reconstruction Team. So we get called out to all the serious and fatal car crashes throughout our. I did patrol 5 years, and then I was promoted to detective sergeant 2000. And that was, it came off the road and basically was just in the office. I was more of an administrative sergeant. I swapped roles with our lieutenant at the time who went to be a nighttime supervisor. And I stayed here in the office. I did that job for about 7 years where I was promoted to detective lieutenant, which really was the same position, just the title was increased. Did that job for about 6 years and I was promoted in 2013 to chief of police.
All right. Yeah, wow. That is a lot of different roles. And I'm sure that in my head, a police chief should have been in different multiple roles, experiencing so many different things because you're overseeing a department and quite a few staff or police officers in your department, which I think that would, in my head, that would help you relate to them, saying, "Hey, I've been in your role before," to a new officer. "You're gonna go through these struggles. You're gonna be successful in this area, but be sure to come to us more experienced individuals, and we'll share with you and help you continue to learn." I feel like that is one of the big roles of a police chief is being a mentor, especially to younger officers.
Absolutely. You need to know the positions that each of the positions at your agency, and knowing that you've done and had doing those positions, it certainly helps. Just to do what you said, mentor and to help coach and train and get people up to par. The job or the goal is to work myself out of the job, teach them what I know and bring the next person up to the next level.
So now thinking about the mentor role, and I'm sure you as a chief still have so many things to learn through continuing education or certifications you have to get. What are some of the trainings that the individuals in your department have to go through on a yearly basis or every couple of years that they have to be certified in something or just what you guys do as trainings as a team?
Trainings are huge in the police department, and we do everything from firearms training, taser training, chemical aerosol spray training, baton, use of force, defensive tactics, updated laws and case law, search and seizure laws, emergency vehicle operations, narcotics enforcement, courtroom testimony, juvenile justice. Training's on and on. It's repetitive. We do firearms training 3, 4 times a year. We do taser training a couple times a year. It's just a constant thing.
And as everything changes every year, I'm sure there's so many new things that you have to be introduced to, or you have to go get continue educated on. Where the 2 years before something has changed and updated. So I'm sure that's one of the advantages of it. There's always probably, I'm sure, something new that's being introduced that you're either required to learn or it's an option to say, hey, our department wants to continue to become stronger as a team and better for our community. And so these are opportunities that you encourage your officers, I'm sure, to take advantage of is when they can do that. So what are some things I know when I've had a chance to interact with all three departments in the area, it seems like the you guys all work together really well. Richfield Township, Davison Township, and City Davison and surrounding communities, that you guys are one big community team, even though you're separate departments. It seems they could say, hey, these are all our friends. We're going to work together for a community. Is that true? Is that what you guys feel too?
Very much. We are very close to Davidson City Police Department and Davidson Township. We work well together, and that is a unique relationship. We are one of very few agencies in the state that I know of that has that relationship. We share officers on special teams. Like so, they talked about the DART team, the Davidson Area Reconstruction Team. We each have officers in that. Part of a detective agreement in case we get cases that are too large for one individual agency. We have team training, which is the teach the young students in class about the dangers of drugs. So we do that together. So there's many things that we do. We back each other up on a daily basis. We're short on cars. When we send our cars there, they send our cars here. It's a very close relationship, and it's very much appreciated by the community and each individual officer.
And I feel that as a resident in this area with kids, that each of the departments always is extremely friendly. The officers, when my kids see an officer out in the community, they know they can just talk to him and say hi to him. And those officers, no matter what department they're in, are gonna just respond in a friendly way. I think that's what makes our area so great is we have a great community relationship with our police departments and first responders. And I think that is one of the wonderful things about living in this Davis and Richfield area is we're a community that wants to know what's going on, wants to build those relationships, and the police departments are part of playing that, especially with young students and kids in the area and building the future up of being interested by in law enforcement or knowing that if they want to raise their family here someday, it's going to be a safe place to live, which as a parent, I appreciate that. And I know my kids love it too.
The reason I live here in Richfield Township as well. The reason I chose this community was because it is such a close knit small town feel. It's got a great sense of community involvement, great school system, everything about the community I like. And I personally enjoy stopping, talking to the kids that look up the police officers, and I like showing them the police car and letting them look inside. And so all of those things are what made me want to stay here.
Yeah. So, Chief, what is one of the things that you enjoy most about the area? Is there, even when you're outside of work, is there places you like to eat? Is there places that you just like to go relax? What do you enjoy doing in our community when you're not working?
I enjoy hunting, camping, fishing. I do all of those things right here in Richfield Township. I have hunting property here. I go to Holloway Reservoir. I do some fishing there. We camp at Wolverine Campground. I enjoy eating out. I like a lot of the restaurants here in Davison. One of my favorites is Black Rock.
Oh,
Love that food. It's pretty good. So yeah, it's a good place to be.
yeah, it seems for me now that I've had this opportunity to work in our community, it makes me appreciate more of our local businesses and restaurants that I can go to. Where my previous job, I was always on the go or I was getting home too late. But now I have a place that I'm working here. But part of my job is I can go enjoy these places. And there's so many of them. I feel that I can find something new to either try to eat or see what they offer as a local store. So yeah, that's it's always interesting to hear what our guests enjoy about that. So now, Chief, something I'm always very fascinated by, and I think Johnny might be too, is what is either an interesting story or something funny you have experienced in law enforcement? I'm sure there's always those times when you're like, "Oh man, that was a great story that I can share for years to come." So, do you have something like that? That was an interesting story you could share with us?
Well, definitely. And probably the call that sticks out the most to me is not a funny call, but I delivered a baby on Christmas morning. That was probably the most remembered call. It
Oh
was
my
actually
goodness.
Christmas Eve. My shift started on Christmas Eve. It was after midnight. I got a call of a woman in labor, and it was snowing. We had 3 inches of fresh snow on the ground, and we're short staffed at that time. Everybody's on vacation. Paramedic was on the opposite side of the county. And I got to the call, and sure enough, the, she was having the baby. You could see the baby's head. And I delivered the baby with no medical personnel on scene. And it was just time for her to have it. And
Oh
I
my
was
goodness.
22, 22 at the time, and was shaking like a leaf when it was done. I tell you,
Oh my goodness. One, that is definitely something you never would forget in that experience, but what a wonderful story. The fact that you were part of someone's life that changed it, but I'm sure they were very thankful that you were there to do that. But it does. I think it shows that our law enforcement does so many things that we maybe don't even know about. And well, Chief, that's a funny story, but talk about being a young police officer. Talk about an interesting way to start your shift that day, I'm sure.
I have a question for you. As seeing as how Travis is a South Sider and kind of ostracized from our area, I am also a resident of Richfield Township. So, one of the questions I have for you is given your tenure of 20 plus years here at Richfield Township, you see this explosive growth in Davison Township, all the things happening within the city of Davison and those new developments. And it feels once you get north of Potter, once you get north of Richfield Road, things appear, at least in my mind, to calm down a little bit. And it's a lot more residential and people seem to stick around a lot longer. You don't see as many houses for sale, things like that. What have you noticed in the last 20 plus years being in Richfield Township from a growth perspective, from where Richfield Township was when you started to where it is today?
it is growing. The neighborhoods were starting to come around and build up a little bit. And then we got hit with the 2008 recession, and it kind of back down. We are a residential community. We're not a business area. So it is primarily residential. It did take a little bit of a dip, but then we've had a few more neighborhoods starting to come back up.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that we've got some nice businesses with Mercino right there. We've got Vice Armory that just opened, the Peak Performance, things like that. So it is definitely nice to see some of those businesses continuing to pop up. Can't forget about my favorite protein place, J Dean's, right there on Coldwater Road as well. While it is predominantly residential, and I would agree with that, it is nice to have these little pockets of businesses where they just kind of serve their community. They do it quietly, professionally, and they've all been there a very long time.
Yeah, it's great to have those businesses that are here on 15 corridor is the primary area for those, but there are a couple, like you said, J Dean's is a pretty busy place there in the fall, and especially when the processing beer.
Oh, absolutely. That's the only place to go from what I hear.
Correct.
Excellent. Excellent. Travis, you have anything else, my friend?
No, Chief, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time today to just have a conversation with us. And we appreciate taking the time for us to be able to learn more about you and your background. And thank you so much for sharing your interesting and exciting story about delivering a baby.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And Chief, thank you so much for your service to our area. I know you have a great team there at Richfield Township, and I look forward to seeing you and your officers around town some.
I look forward to seeing you guys. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you so much, Chief. Have a great day.
You too.